Good morning, everybody, and happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. So, let's see here. I'm going to do this and put that down here because we don't need it anymore. Let's go ahead and head on over to our and take a look at what we've got here for drawing, and then we will get ourselves a sheet of paper, which, it's kind of scarce in these days. I don't know what happened to my sheets of paper. I had a whole bunch of sheets of paper. There they all are. And we will continue on over here. Let's move over to the desk. All right. Here we are. Okay. Making sure everything's working here. I'm going to go on ahead and take just a normal L square. Here's our normal L square. Put it down on there. I'll take our pencil. And draw a couple of lines right here. A couple of starts and ends. Starts and ends. Starts and ends. And we'll take the L square, which got underneath the wire there, and we'll go like this. And we will go on ahead and do a couple of very long lines, like that, right there. And you'll notice that even after we've done this, one of the things that's happened is that I've now gotten to the point where I actually still lift my elbow up off the table to do this. And even with an L square, I'm drawing with my arm not down on the table, which is an interesting thing. The practice has worked really well. And then we'll put in a couple of these guys. Right. I kind of like the cross thing here. It's kind of cute. Makes it look like a heart or something. There we go. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn this around like this. I'm going to take a 0.4 fine liner. At some point my fine liner is going to die. I can see the tip is already getting kind of worn down. It's hard to see here, but the tip is getting kind of worn down. Well, hello, Donald. Good morning. Hope you can hear me just fine. Okay, and you're not Doug this morning. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? So, okay. We're going to take yesterday morning. I don't know what the problem was. Yesterday morning I called him Doug. And I'm like, well, I guess you're Doug today. So you're not Doug today, Donald. You're Donald. So all is good. So we're going to go on ahead and we're going to, again, lift your elbows off the table. And you're going to try to draw this with just the straight line, as straight as you can, lifting your entire arm off the table. We're practicing here. 4. And we'll go here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the same thing from the destination to the arrival points. We'll look here, and then we want to look at the arrival point. Start here, and then look at the arrival point. Start here, and then look at the arrival point. Right? We're trying to make this happen. And now we'll go this way. Same thing. 2, 3, 4. Ooh, way off. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the truth is, you should be feeling it in your shoulder. Head of a Klingon. Oh, heart of a Klingon, yes. And then we're going to do this guy right here. and take your time. We don't have to be in a hurry. There we go. Even those are getting better. And this is 1117. We'll put that right over here. The rest of them. All right. We'll move back over here to our main desk. And good, mate. You know, so the good thing about this particular thing is that this microphone sounds really solid, and it's great for this job, but it is battery powered, and you know, which makes it great. It's wireless, right? I can wander all over this room here and you can hear me just fine, but the receiver, which sits over here on the board, it's, you know, it needs to be recharged after each show, and so that's kind of becoming an issue that I don't know how I'm going to deal with, but we'll deal with it somehow. Okay, so today's jobs, we actually aren't prepped for anything, strangely enough, today. So I'm going to have to look around and see what we've got going on, because I'm behind the curve this morning. I had a plan for everything, but I cleared yesterday's I've forgotten what I was trying to say. I lost track of my thought process there. It's interesting. I was just having a discussion about never read transcripts, because if you read the transcripts of anybody, they sound completely like a lunatic. So I said, as a good example of this, just watch my shows and just read the subtitles, because the subtitles like to literally transcribe everything that says, you know, because it's a computer system, so it transcribes everything. And so I sound like a raving lunatic. It's very funny. Just kind of having that moment of, what was I doing? Okay, I know what we're going to do. We're going to work today on Blender. And we're going to do some Blender work. So let's bring up Blender. That'll help us some. And Blender starts up over here, doesn't it? Oh, we'll bring it up over here so you can see it. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That character was interesting and fascinating to draw. It's a Lashunta, which is from the game Starfinder. And the Lashunta a fascinating character type or whatever. I don't really know. Okay, so we're going to put in a new object. Is it Shift A? There we go. I'm going to put a plane down. And the plane, well, first of all, we don't need this guy. No, we need this guy. We need this guy lots. So let's move him out of the way, because what we really want to do is put on this plane our design that we're going to work on today. So this is the experiment we're going to do today. Now I've got to figure out how to put in. So one of the biggest problems with Blender is that, well, thank you very much. I'm open for commissions. If anybody wants any other commissions, that'd be great. Biggest problem with Blender is that it's a community effort. It's open source, and so there's a lot of people working on the program and working on the code, and that's fine, but a lot of the creative ideas go different directions, and so there's a logic to this section, there's a logic to this section, and they don't necessarily mesh together. And so And it seems like some of the people who were working on Blender were trying desperately not to make it the same as other products so that it had its own feel and had its own life. No problem with that at all. But then you end up with things like, I don't know how to texture map this at all easily, and I'm going to have to probably even ultimately just look it up. Add a new texture. Image. Create a new image or open a new image? Open. Let's open an image. Because we are looking for existing stuff. I will be happy to do the commissions for you. We'll even do them here. It'll be great. Okay, we're going to go into here. Wow. Okay. Double click doesn't work. It's like some weird functions of Blender that are like, why doesn't that work? So you can't double click on this. You have to open image, the folder that it's in so you can get into the folder. Things like that make it difficult to decide whether what you're doing here. And then this is, of course, completely difficult to understand because there's no viewing it as a... Yeah, you can't view it. So we have to guess. And we guessed well. Okay. So now that we've brought up this, how do we apply it to here? Right? Wow, this is not easy. We do want to scale it though. We are going to work on, by the way, more ships from the universe of... We want ships too, though. There we go, because we want these destroyers. We're going to do ships from black. Nothing here does exactly what it's supposed to do. Like, there's no button that says apply. It just... You've loaded the... Well done. You have loaded this picture. You're not doing anything with it. You've just loaded it. Good job. And the thing is, I'm not trying to diss... I'm not trying to diss the people who've written Blender. It's like my kid telling me about the games he plays. It makes total sense to him, and the fact that he plays this game means that when he talks about the blurp de sleeper blopping and blooply dooply blopping, it makes sense to him, but none of it makes sense to us because we don't have the history. And we get the same thing going with Blender, where you have these people have been working internally on this for so long that all of their stuff is internally logical. And Blender is old enough to have predated some of these changes in Windows, where things are logical, like being able to see a preview image of all of your JPEGs is a totally logical thing to see in Windows, but Blender's not doing it. Double-clicking on a folder is a totally logical thing to do in Windows to open the folder, but Blender won't do that too. Yeah. And there is some wonderful stuff in Blender. The fact that I can sculpt using my pen makes it as powerful as ZBrush, right? But the problem, of course, is that I have to remember that in Blender you don't double-click a folder. You have to open image every folder in order to get into a subfolder, and things like that are clunky and difficult to navigate. Or the fact that I have loaded an image, but it's not on my object. So clearly there are issues that that a small amount of fixing could make. I mean, I don't even know how to apply. Right? I mean, how do I get this to here? Now that we've got this image loaded, it doesn't have an apply button. And brush texture, brush map. And we've already spent 18 minutes now. Well, maybe not 18 minutes. We've definitely spent 10 minutes just trying to put the base map down so I can trace it with an object from above. And that's the whole point, is I already have the design for my ships in here. How do I get them onto a flat surface so that I can 3D them? You know, this is the stuff that really is sort of a question. Yeah, I've seen some house mapping programs, and they are complicatedly complicated. So we're going to have to go to Blender, apply map material, or maps, image maps, object. And we're going to have to do this. I'm not going to watch a video while doing a video, so hopefully there's text here. I want to put a 2D image on a 3D object in Blender. Exactly what it's saying here. I found the Textures tab in the Properties window, but I can't figure out what to do with it. As you tagged, you will need to use Blender Render and not Cycles. Am I in Cycles? Does anybody know what we're in over here? Meh. This is difficult because, of course, I don't have that. Viewport shading needs to be set for... Oh, yeah. I mean, for me, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. If you actually look at the model that I made in Blender, I made this model, and I made it as a. I made the Corvette, and if you look at that, it's not lined up. It's not straight. There are pieces of it that are wonked and stuff like that. This looks like this is just too difficult. I think I'll just eyeball it and hope for the best. So we're going to eyeball it and hope for the best. But it was the same thing. It was... Oh, for crying out loud. Fine, we will move you down here. Okay, starting from the x-axis, we're going to start working on things. So we'll go to edit mode. At least building is something I do understand. So we're going to build from this side here. We're going to hit E for extrude. and that's going to extrude a section of this out. Now I'm going to bring up over here the actual picture of these ships so that I can get this squared away. Now, there once was a time when I was going to, and it still will happen at some point, I'm going to build a game off of all of this. And this is still going to happen. These are the critters we're making right here. We're making a destroyer. So we're going to be putting that in. These guys are obviously past the ships that are, as we saw before, the corvettes. The destroyers are the most popular ships, and there's going to be a lot of destroyers wandering around. So I want to make sure that I've got the ability to put these destroyers in to the game, into the story, because they're in the game, and so I want them in the story as well. So we've extruded this section here, and it looks like what we've got on this is moving up here. We've got sort of a rounded second hull piece here. I'm going to move this to there. So we've got this as a sort of a rounded side through this side. I almost wonder if it wouldn't be better. Probably not. So I'm just going to go on ahead and do this here, where I come out here, and where I move out a little bit more here. Move out a little bit more here. Move out a little bit more there. There is a spine along the back of this ship. So I'm going to make this fit to the spine. And then this is the spine through the back of the ship that is one color. We can see that here with this blue indicating that spine. So I'm going to take that and move along with it here. I'm going to do a little further forward. I'm going to move to that front piece. And then I'll move all the way forward to that neck on the front there. And you'll see what I'm doing here. Exactly. The destroyers are the awesomest. They're small, they're cheap. You can have a lot of them out there. And so I feel like destroyers are going to be all over the place. I mean, the other two things you saw in there on that sheet here are the light and heavy cruisers. These are the light cruisers here, and this is a heavy cruiser. And so the destroyers get the greatest ability to do these small piece things. So we're going to go on ahead and, where did my mouse go? There it is. Now, from here, we're going to extrude this way. And this is going to be going down that slope because they're shaped like this. The hull is like this. So we're going to want to go down that slope on the side there. And I think I want to do one more out. So this allows us to take a look at the opposite here. We'll switch to vertice mode, and that'll allow us to, if we put this, so the thing about Blender is that you kind of have to do that. All right, and that'll put this down like this, which is the way it should be on this side of the hull. Move like that. Move like this. and like this. And I actually like curves that don't actually do the straight, up and down, especially on parts where the ship doesn't need to dock, and that's not a docking area, so we don't have to worry about it. Then from the top, we're going to bring this. Yeah, that's what the Corvette is. It's a PT boat. In fact, it's straight up a PT boat, almost universally. So that's why it's our hero ship, is that it's a wonderful PT boat, and you're following what the heroes are doing with their shore defense, so to speak. That's its job. That's what they do. And so, I'm going to move this up and maybe back to be more like that. And then this moves down like that, and all of this moves down really close to there. And this guy moves over here. And now what we're going to have is something that's a little bit more like that in design. Right, and this is that secondary hull piece. I'm moving stuff. I didn't mean to move stuff. Oh, for crying out loud. This is this piece of the hull. We'll extend out this neck piece here in a second, but first I just wanted to make sure I've got that piece in, so that's where we are. I'm going to move this guy over here. And I feel like on top of all of this, we've got this sort of shape that we're building here for the hull. And it goes back into the... Yes, McHale's Navy. The one thing I am seeing here that we're missing is I've kind of come down the slope here without leaving the space for that inner square that I'm looking for, that spine square. So we're going to work here and move this over. Oops, you know what we forgot to do? Forgot to put it in naked mode so that you can see through it all. Here we go. We're going to do this. And actually, I want to raise this up into there. There's a hollow in the inside of the hull. And we'll go into there and work on that a little as well. But all of these ships seem to have a point on the top. Okay, I'm going to switch to face mode, and I'm going to extrude. There we go. So that's that stripe that's going along the back spine. And in fact, what we can do with this is look at this here. And this is going to be that entire running stripe that goes along the back of the ship. So it should have gone over and didn't. That's fine. We can fix that. We probably will do this so that it'll be uniform all the way down. So we're going to take a little bit here on this guy and just move him in a little bit more. Now that we've done that. Then we're going to take these front ones and move them all over. And then we're going to have a problem selecting stuff, apparently. Who knew? All right. Who's here? You guys, right? Just you that can move over this way? Yeah, Why am I grabbing? Oh, because we're still on face. That's why. Okay. There we go. There. The bridges of all of these ships are generally in the center core of... Oh, sorry. They're generally in the center core, right in the middle. And that's just for safety's sake, because the ships can take in a number of damage. There is a pilot house generally on the very, very, very front for steering the ship in tight quarters. But the truth is, even today, we don't really need windows. The only reason that they have a pilot house in the front of these ships is in case something goes weird, or, you know, you can't quite see what's going on, or the computers are having a problem and you still need to dock the ship. So they keep the they keep those sort of the tower on top function. This is supposed to be rounder than it is, and I'm really kind of annoyed because it's really like this is what it's calling for on my design, and I like that a lot better anyway. So we're gonna move this, but yeah, there's no, the con isn't going to be, sure, and I feel like I'm looking at the heavy cruiser, and on the very, very front of its nose is an array, like a sensor array with dishes and things like that, communications arrays and stuff like that. So I designed these ships 40,000 zillion years ago. I'm trying to remember all of the logic that I had behind them. I mean, some of these ships go all the way back to my 20s. And they've been with me as a design for 20 years. So it's kind of, I'm trying to remember, what was the point? What was I doing there? What was the thought, the logic? So we're going to take here and make it 1 deck high, not 2 decks high. That gives me a little less of a front up here to have to deal with. And what we're going to do is take face and go here for this face. And this, no, this face. Man, you're just a mess. This is where it's beneficial to do this. There. And then we will extrude out here. This is that neck piece that's coming along here. And the question is, should I take that other? I probably should. So we're going to then do this. We're going to shift and shift and then extrude from here. And this will be the adjustment to get everything to kind of line up on the neck. And then we'll go from here and extrude out here for this piece of the neck. And Navy tradition is a big deal. I mean, certainly not dissing Navy tradition. But the conning tower being way up high just makes it an easy target and something for somebody to shoot off. And this world has fighters. And since the world has fighters and mecha in it, it is plausible for somebody in a large mobile suit to land on your ship, walk along the hull, and then shoot your bridge off. So you don't want anybody to do that. So the conning tower, the bridge, all of that, the central communications area, anything central is going to be right in the center core of these ships, so that you can't just walk up and shoot the bridge off. Okay, I am seeing a crossed angle under here. Yep. Okay, so we're going to take this guy, and he needs to go up. So that this makes some logical sense. And this guy needs to come up too. To follow under the auspices of this hull piece that's moving down. Why are you not selecting all of these? Because we're not in naked mode. I am so calling it naked mode from now on just because it's funny. Okay, we're coming down onto this neck piece here. This next section is 1, 2, 3, 4 decks high still. This is still a large ship. My ships are still big enough that it warrants... Move this back to here, because that's the whole point. There we go. There we go. Just like that. Yeah, most of the stuff on these ships is, generally speaking, in that front hammerhead, because that's the whole point, is the hammerhead keeps everything far away from the living quarters, so that if it's radioactive or radiation or anything like that, it's out on that hammerhead. And they'll have, redundancies in case you decide to just take off the hammerhead in these ships, which I'm sure is a common attack, to take the hammerhead off. But it's still one of those things where I feel like we, okay, looking at the side here, let's go ahead and bring this forward, because this is that long neck piece. So, yeah, I mean, I think that that's definitely a truth. So we're going to extrude it one more time. And this we're going to scale. Right, we're going to scale this down both this way and this way. And then move, there we go, that's what I was after. And then we're going to take this, and we're going to move it like this. And then we'll extrude that as well. Right to here. And this is going to just be that connector to the front part of the hammerhead. Right. I'll bring this forward just a little bit more too. And we'll do the exact reverse of what we just did. Right. And then we'll bring it back. And that gives this point here. And then we'll move into the hammerhead. Hammerhead expands out this way. So we'll just go for a top view of this. We need to fix some of these pieces anyway, because if this is going to be mirrored, so to speak, on that side, we need to make sure that all of our vertices are lined up so that they can be mirrored. Otherwise, these guys are all going to have weird geometry when we get over there. We don't want weird geometry. So, all right, now looking at my ship, here we are right here at this part of the neck, right? We have the connector right here, and we're moving up to this aspect of the neck right here. So we're going to be expanding back out for the hammerhead. Right, so we know that means that these guys are actually going to kind of head out that way. And I actually might just take this and just do that, right? And then just move the entire mess this way. And that'll come out onto the deck of the ship pretty straight up like that. And that looks great. I think what I really want to do, though, is tie this up more so that the hammerhead looks a little different structurally. Right? We want it to be rounder or round-esque. So I'm going to bring these up or bring these down, as the case may be, so that the structure of the hammerhead is roundish, right? All of the Unity starships have that hammerhead, which allows for the two gravity generators to be spaced far enough apart that they can produce a gravity well directly ahead in a triangle. So Confederacy starships have a half dish that they use. So the Confederate ships are half dish with their gravity generators still on the edges of the half saucer section. They look kind of like the old or the Intrepid class from Enterprise. We haven't built any Confederacy ships yet, but we will. The Confederacy are the bad guys. Although, if you guys are familiar with my writing, my bad guys aren't always bad guys. There's always something going on there. It's not straight up. Now I'm just shaping this a little because I want this to be, this is the adjustment to that hammerhead on the front. So looking at it from the full view here, I'm starting to see that we're a little fatter than I want to be on this secondary hull, which is fine. We can just do this. There. Like that. Okay, so now we've set up sort of the structure heading upward into the front of the ship onto this hammerhead, right? And I feel like we've got it does kind of look cool from this angle, doesn't it? So let's go on ahead and stretch this out one step, and then I feel like we've got 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps, quite a few steps here. So we're going to do this, and then this is that long piece to the front of the nose, and then we'll bring it around with a number of steps to make it rounded until it comes to the point on the front there. And that looks like a really weird thing, but it'll make sense here in a second, I promise you. Okay. Now, when we look at the original design, yes. In fact, I was just, the 3 primary weapon systems for this are an X-ray pumped maser, which is a microwave laser, which is great for really, really, really close combat, because, of course, everything moves at light speed when you're dealing with that stuff. So when you start getting to light seconds away from each other, it's going to take seconds for your maser to get to you. So since some of these battles will take place over light days, I could fire at you and you'll be long gone by the time so one of the best things that they've got is gravity missiles, which generate their own little gravity well right in front of them and fall towards it, so they move along like the ships do. The problem is your gravity drive will suck it in, right? So you've got a gravity drive in front, and so the way that they do this is to mathematically do flybys of the missiles. So you've got the gravity well in front of the ship, and they'll launch the missile like this, so that it'll swing around and hit the ship, and comes around it. So that's part of the cat and mouse game that they play. So the ship will put a gravity well in front of it, and then move with the gravity well and adjust and just keep moving the gravity well randomly. And that'll allow the missiles to sometimes miss. They'll sometimes go awry or whatever like that. And so they do have that. They also have sort of a chaff where they just put out gravity wells all over the place that cause a mess. But that's hard on ships. It makes the ships, you'll get a shift in the hull, or you could theoretically break a ship doing stuff like that. So they won't do that specifically, but there are great tactics involved in this world. I've noticed. I didn't mean to do it that way, but I ended up doing it that way, and it ended up being kind of fun. I've got some great tactics going. So first things first, I'm going to move. This is the nose piece, so we're going to move all of these guys together, because they're right on the tip of the nose. And we want this guy here as close together as that as we can. And then we'll move. It's very rounded. So this is going to be like this. Okay. They also have what they call wing torpedoes, W-I-N-G. Those are weird little torpedoes that have their own hyperspace drives. The problem is hyperspace in this story disrupts computers and logical thinking, so it has to be mechanical. So effectively what you do is, there is big threat between using gravity wells to pull things. Gravity one of the things I always kind of am amazed by is gravity control is a big deal. But Star Trek and other things, they just use it as we've got control over gravity. Okay, but you do understand that having control over gravity means that you could do some serious damage to things. So I kind of wanted to illustrate that people weaponizing gravity is a thing. Because I absolutely agree. Weaponizing gravity is a brutal effect. Okay, let's look at this side. Make sure that these guys all do their thing. I actually don't need this to be like that. I actually kind of want it to be like this. But the wing torpedoes are fabled now. They're not used very often because you kind of effectively have to have an alarm clock inside there that just tick, 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 tick. And then when it goes, then the ship drops out of hyperspace, or the torpedo drops out of hyperspace, and then it has to hit something. And at that point in time, the computer can come online and target. But those are mythical, because the truth is you have to know where your enemy is and know where you're going to be. So it's good for hitting bases, it's good for hitting planets, and it's good for all of that stuff. The problem is that, generally speaking, it'll drop out of hyperspace, then it has to start up its motor and then go, and then all of that stuff. The computer comes online, and that's just enough time that one of these guys sitting out there would just take it out with a mazer, right? And just cut it to shreds with the mazers. So anything close, it's not very effective for ship to ship, and it's really just used for surprise attack. And because of that, people just don't do it as much anymore. Yep. Okay, we're coming along here. We're now at this point of the hammerhead. I want to be straight because we're going to have to come off of it, but it doesn't have to be that straight. It can be slightly arched down to make it just aesthetically, sort of follow this grid here where it's just kind of coming down slowly in a slope. Same thing in the bottom here, where we're sort of discussing we're discussing a slope here, and it's sort of moving up like that. Right, and so we'll keep describing the slope a little, but the hammerhead's going to come off straight. So we want to make sure that hammerhead comes straight. Well, no, I guess it could be a wing-esque. They are wingy, even though these ships obviously don't go in the atmosphere at all. So I'm going to move this down. Move this forward, and this is all one line here as it comes up to that nose piece. When dealing with this, it's best to move all of these pieces together as much as possible. And I actually feel like this may come out a little bit more because this is a slightly... Whoa. Lost control there. I want this to be rounded up front. Yep. Right. I haven't decided how I intend to deal with time travel. I'm sure that there is. I mean, it's a science fiction story, so there's got to be time travel-esque somewhere. Okay, we're up here at the nose of the ship, and I feel like, first of all, I want to move this guy out to here. And this guy over here, because it shouldn't be that weird. And I'm just going to round this out, right? So it's going to be rounded, heading up to the nose. The nose itself is only one deck high for that pilot house. And so it doesn't need to be more than one deck. So we're going to flatten all of this out to go into this one deck line. But right now, it has a dent. It has a dent, Arthur Dent. But I feel like... And all I'm doing here is just making it a little less stressed on the mesh. Right? We want this to be rounded and nice. And not super stressed. Ooh. We can see how it's bent down here. So I'm just going to bring this up to there, and we're just going to sort of look at this line along here and just bend it up like that. Okay. I feel like this guy needs to be bent in a little bit more. This guy needs to be bent in a little bit more. Coming up to this front piece here. And we've got now we're seeing a lot of the shape of that hammerhead coming in, right? As we look at the structure of it, it's a little narrow on the top, so I might raise that back up again because it looks like the hammerhead's going to come out of the bottom of this almost now. It's going to look too low. So let's take a look at some of the structure of this. And the hammerhead should be coming out of the straight center of this as much as possible. So we're going to bring that up. Bring this up too. And bring these pieces right here over. There. We want this, it's not going to be perfect on any of these ships. They're not, the hammerhead doesn't exactly come out of that point. But the destroyer hammerheads are only 2 pieces or 3 pieces long, so that's not bad. But I feel like the pilot house is still, I feel like this is A. I feel like this is kind of low. Oof, I also feel like we might have been, there we go. This is kind of low. Yeah, let's try it again. Right, I feel like we should be a little higher up on the top here. And even if this divot here, that's not bad. I don't mind the divot. I mean, we can leave that in there if we wanted. In fact, it kind of looks cool. So we'll go for that. Designed by looks cool. There we go. That gives it an interesting profile. Okay, now let's go on ahead and put that hammerhead in. Hammerhead's just coming straight out of here. Yes, the sails are deployed once in hyperspace. The hammerhead's for just moving the ship in normal space. So you want to move across a solar system. I want to become famous. Great. When you want to move the ship across a solar system, let's say, you'll project a gravity well. The ship falls towards the gravity well, but since the ship's projecting the gravity well well moves, and the ship just keeps falling towards it. So that well keeps pulling it, sort of like the carrot on the stick of a donkey. You tie the stick and the carrot to the donkey, and the donkey keeps moving because it keeps going after the carrot, which keeps moving because it's tied to the donkey, you know. So, but once they hit hyperspace, they deploy all the sails like we had done before. But those are from the sail generator, which is in the back part of this hammerhead section. And that sail generator just projects those. And it can project those out of the projectors, which are all along the front of this hammerhead piece. Okay, we're going to extrude and start building that hammerhead out. Then we'll do another one. And then another one. Okay. Now we'll need to look from this one from the top just to even see where we are on alignment. Because we need to be, for this, the back part is absolutely straight. And we've hit the break time. So I'm going to get up here in a second and take a break. But first, I want to finish this piece here. It's because we're on, or not on points, we're on mesh. So there we go. Yes. Well, you don't generally get to see the front of these ships. They're moving so fast. I mean, for drama's sake and for our comics, we're always going to have the ships like right here, right in front of us and stuff like that. But the truth is that in even solar system distances, they're going to be, they're going to be passing each other so fast that you'll never see it. So we're going to So we're looking at this, and this panel is out like this, and we'll move like this, we'll move like this, and then we will go take a quick. So let's go on ahead and everybody stand up, and let's, oh man, stretch. It's the 7th inning stretch. Good job. My kid's stretching too. Shake everything out. Woo! Shake it all out. There you go. Good job. Good job. Man, some parts of me were popping. And then we'll walk. Take a walk real quick. We'll walk around here real quick. We'll walk back. Well, remember, we should look outside and go, it's a wonderful day. It's a wonderful day. So, okay. That's a good break. We'll come back around. And then we will return to our work here. Okay. Now, when we look at this, when I look at the actual drawing, it looks like the wing may have come out of a spot that we didn't actually have on here, like this spot here. So I'm feeling like I might actually undo for the moment here. There. So we will set us back to this, and we're on face, and I think I'm going to pull from this one too. So we're going to do that as well. Then we'll extrude. That's not a big deal that we had going on there, so I'm not that worried. We'll extrude one more time, and then we'll extrude a little bit more. And the reason I'm doing that a little bit more is just to give a little bit of a curve to the top of this, the file here, or top of the ship, so that we've got, or top of the wing, I guess. We're going to take all of these guys and move them back so that they're flat and straight coming off of the hull. And then this looks a little bit more reasonable whenever we talk about the look of those, the look of that particularly piece there. So looking at the way that this ship works here and looking at the original design, we have these guys here are more like this, so that there's this outer point here which does that. And then this guy is already back like this on the wing. And these guys move here. Right, because this is the point that we're sort of heading for with the hammerheads is moving back to there. And then this is just going to be the rounded tip. Right, so that the wings don't have just a flat effect. Ooh, right. We'll have to come through the front here and flatten the wing out a little. So let's take a look at the... Right, so I'm going to pull this out past the ship so that we can work on flattening it out as a design. So I'm going to move it way out here because I want to look at this without getting caught up with the rest of the mesh. Because the hammerheads are going to thin out like this, and we want them to get narrower. So I'm going to be pushing down on this mesh like so. There. And the idea behind this is that I'm just going to be making this a little bit sleeker. Right? So I want it to thin down. You can see it's thinning down. I really want this guy to thin down a lot. Like the leading edge has to be pretty thin. It is a wing, even though it's not a literal wing because these ships are not atmospherically compatible at all. I wanted it to look like sort of a wing. So now we'll bring this guy back so he's the correct distance from the center core of the ship. And there we go. Now that's going to look a lot better. This looks a whole lot more like the destroyers that I envisioned in my head. I feel like these 2 points could move out a little, and this point could move back. Right, just to give us a little bit of a view on things here. Like this guy could move out to here, and that guy could move out to here. There we go. We're just thinning this down. Okay, I need to clean up this part of it. It's all right. Did you stretch while you were on the restart? Because that's the important part, right? Because we've been here for a bit. So as long as you did some stretching or whatever while your phone was restarting, it was a productive time. The other thing I'm going to do is pull this back. Ooh, I didn't get them all because we're not on naked mode. There. The hammerhead has a separation point here because the gravity system, the sail system, all of that stuff is way up there in that front gravity, and that is the most dangerous section of the ship. It has real space engines that it uses for power plants, and they're also used as thrusters if they need to. That works, as long as you move something. There we go. Now we are getting closer, right? Here we've got. See, now looking at it from this point of view, I kind of like the idea of this not being like that, but being more like this, and putting that bump back here. Looks cooler that way. Right? I mean, just looking at it this way, it still has sort of a divot going along the front row here so that it still has sort of a push in that kind of goes out then to the... This is purely aesthetics. I do feel like looking at it from this angle, though, we get kind of a wiggle going this way. So I'm going to take this guy and move him out. Oof, there's more than one guy there. I'm going to take these guys. So, there we go. I'm trying to kind of solve the fact that this looks like it's wiggling back and forth, right? I don't want it to wiggle back and forth. We want that to be more like that. So the hull is nice and sleek along the side here. And then we need to also look at this spinal point, right? That's not rising as much as it looks so. Let's talk about the spinal point. Yep, that's what I thought. So this spinal point here is clearly not lined up properly. There we go. This is a stripe along the back. Some destroyers, depending on what their mission loadout is, some of these destroyers might have a spinal mounted railgun up there. So there's a point behind this spinal mount piece because it might have a railgun put back there. And that's one of the other things that engines are used for in my world, actual thrust engines, is you'll fire something like a railgun that's mounted on the back of the ship, and that railgun will fire in at the same time your engines fire so that you can offset it so that the ship doesn't fly backwards and it doesn't kill your crew. It counters the thrust of that railgun. So I'm going to go on ahead and put that mount back here on its spine. Just so that we don't forget it. It doesn't need to be much. Just a little bit of a mount back there so that we know that there's one. Right. Now we're getting there. This is looking a lot more like the destroyers that I imagined as I imagined them, which is good because 3D is not one of my world's best skills. So we're going to go in here and round this guy off. So we're going to take a look at this, go into naked mode because it needs naked mode, and we'll pull this back like that. We'll pull this guy over like this. We're going to go out like that. And we're going to come back like so. And this should round this out really nicely so that it has sort of a wingy effect. And I'll put this guy to the center point of this. There. I can tell already. This deforms the mesh a lot out here. So we're going to try to pull the mesh up like that. I don't feel like it needs to be thick out here at this point. Railguns are awesome. Railguns are the best. I'm looking forward to rail launchers on carriers. I think that's going to be awesome. EM rail launchers on carrier decks. It'll be a lot more efficient than steam cats. I'm just saying. And I will always, we could sit and talk and we can discuss that a lot. So, okay, this guy's too far forward. I can tell that already. I'm going to move him back and give this a nice, it meant to be there sort of feel. As what I'm looking at here on this section of the hull is kind of want to move this forward. So originally the entire comic was going to be placed on the destroyer, but now the Drake is going to be involved on as a sort of a ancillary character, part of their squadron, and so I need to have the Drake designed, which is what we're doing right now. We're just going to go ahead and design up the Drake so that she's ready to go when we get to that stage. Let's go ahead and start working on the after section, because this section here is don't tell me. Yeah, we did that. We did it. Actually, that's not bad, because I've got this sort of recessed in here coming in, and so I kind of like the idea that maybe this is up just a hair like so, and whoa. Don't do that. And then we will go like this and snag just these guys right here and do the same thing. We'll bring them up so that they match. In here. So this internal area here is like concave area. That's good for anything else that we need to do on. It's another mission adaptable section of the ship. It can carry something under here in this area under here. I mean, now I'm looking at the cross section. Now I want to make sure that it all makes logical sense. There is a deck through here. So maybe we'll bring this up to that deck. All right. It's only moving one of those, and that's very irritating. I don't know whether I put another. I must have put 2 shells in here. Yeah, there has to be an external cargo hold too, but I figure if I put an indentation like this, then we can put a cargo hold and just lock it into place, and it can have little locks that just click and hold it. There's no reason not to. Now, moving into the neck, I actually really do want to move all of these guys up to that deck. Not just these sections back here, because that's the neck section is all on that deck. So we're going to go ahead and move the entire front nose piece up onto that deck. There. I'll make that a gradual ramp across there onto this lower deck. And there's a bump there. Let's get rid of that bump. There. Now what we should have is everything that's plausibly on that deck is going to be easy to see as one continuous unit all the way through. Oh. Yes. It's like 20 minutes. They're still on me. Sometimes I forget. I'm sorry. That's a funny and embarrassing sort of way to deal with things. I don't know. There we go. So I'm just moving random pieces of the ship around a little so that I can smooth the mesh out. I think these guys don't need to be necessarily so high up. And we can see. There we go. Oh, no. You have to remind me. Sometimes I just completely space it out, and I'm so sorry. Sometimes I go to break, and then I come back, and I forget that I haven't done the camera thing. There we go. Move this up to there. And move this down to there. And that makes this line match. That's always important. All right, so here's where we are at this point. I probably can work a little bit more on that nose and bring that room around. We've got to remember, whatever we do, we want to be done with this side of the vessel before we mirror it, because anything we do after we mirror it's going to be... So the Unity has... I'm not sure I understand that in question. Are you talking about IFF, or are you talking about just in general? Like general navigation? General navigation? I'm not quite sure I understand what you're asking at this point on that one. They have a beacon-esque situation where, I mean, there's like bases and stuff like that are located. Whoa. Where are you going? So there's a galactic culture that has existed for a while prior to the start of the story. So some things are uniform by galactic standards. So like they follow the standard operation beacons and stuff like that. Oh yeah. So you could tell who is what. The thing is that gravity waves move faster in real space than light does. So you will see a gravity footprint before you see the light of the ship, or even its beacons beaconing out. They do have quantum entangled pair communication, which means that every ship has one of a pair of two quantum entangled items, and usually a quirk or a quark or a tachyon from one atom, so that they're sharing the same quantum entanglement. The receiving end of that then is put at a home base location. So when one's pulled, the other one moves. So it allows them to make instantaneous communication like subspace, but only as long as they're on that one quantum entangled pair. So there are hubs in the center of, say, in these ships' case, there's a hub in the Polaris, their home ship, and that hub takes every ship's quantum entangled pair and then transmits it back and forth in a very small communication bay, so that the transmission time is instantaneous to different things. Then the Polaris has a quantum entangled pair communication line to, say, Renum, where the home world of the Unity. So you could make a phone call from any ship in the fleet to anywhere else in the fleet instantaneously using this QEP, quantum entangled pair communication system. And yes, I think the wells would have a different gravitational... You could tell the size of the ship by the well, but that could be faked. I mean, you know, obviously my little Corvette could project a massive gravity well in front of it. The thing is, you could tell by the speed that it was wrong, right? Because a ship that's, say, 19,000 tons falling towards a well is going to move much faster than a ship that's 250,000 tons moving towards a large well. So the wells that they project in front of the ship vary in size depending on the weight of the vessel, the mass of the vessel. So you can fake it, but any experienced nav or any experienced sonar tech, your analysis to the sonar tech or your analogy to the sonar tech, any experienced sonar tech would be able to see right away that something was up. That wasn't right. So there is a certain amount of that you could definitely see. It's back to, I really want to make sure that when we have battles in this story, the battles are interesting and intriguing, not just, I'm going to have it in naked mode. The battles are intriguing and fascinating and have a certain amount of gravitas to them where it's difficult and there's sort of that chess game going out there, But I also believe in Shakespeare's theory, to thine own self be true, and so I'm making sure I've got all of the logic worked out before we start writing this story so that there is a definite logic to what's going on. Internally and externally consistent. There we go. Now we can bring that back around and let's take a look at it. Because now I feel like these guys need to come down on the blue to there and come up on the blue there. And then we will extend it some more. And this goes wider. I'm just looking at my design over here on the right. Like that. And goes wider right here. And then we go back to about here. And this is one of those, shrink it down to about there. There we go. I'm going to take a look at this to make sure we've got this going kind of the right way. Yeah, I feel like these parts up here are not, in fact, expanding. We're only getting expansion going one direction. I don't want it to go that way, so we'll figure that out in a second. But that's going to be the engine pod in the back, so we're good there. We'll get that squared away in a second here. Well, let's go ahead and make sure we have all the pieces for this. All right, we're going to go on ahead and extrude a little bit more here. And then we're going to go to the tail. The destroyer only has two engine bods, one to the port and one to the starboard. So since this only has two engines, I'm going to go on ahead and just put those struts on there in a second, but it should be pretty straightforward. Now, remember, I'm not putting a lot of super detail on here. Excuse me. I say that for the benefit of of Brent, whom I know is already like gunning to print all these ships out. There's not a lot of super detail on these ships because they're going to ultimately be mapped. And once they are, it's, there we go. Once these guys are mapped, it's really not going to be very, I don't need to have that much detail on it. So it's not as detailed to make these. These guys would probably make really good miniatures about that long, but that's about it. So we're going to take these guys and move them up, and these guys and move them down. And this part right here needs to move down, and this part needs to move up, and these guys need to move this way. And this is where the fin of the engine pod comes out. All of these guys need to move up, and all of these guys need to move down. There we go. And this is going to make sort of an 8-sided ingon in the back here, which should be relatively straight. We'll do that, and we'll do that. There. And this is the point where we bring out the wing, the engine wing. So we're going to extrude that and bring it straight out. It doesn't have much design to it. It's not elegant. So, unlike the other engine wings on here, these are just standard engine wings. So, we'll move it back to about there. We'll switch to this mode, and we'll move this guy. Ooh, we should probably go into naked mode. There we go. And do that. The engine nacelles are not as far out as the hull, and they're not as far back as this green stripe. So we're going to take this green stripe and move it forward like so. And whoa, 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 whoa. I'm going to take just these guys right here and move them out. There we go. There we go. And that's how we get to the nacelle pod to hold that engine pod in. Now we have the start of a destroyer. I feel like now that we've done that, I feel like this section of the ship is too long. So we're going to take a top view. We're going to grab all of these guys, but we need to be in naked mode so we can grab the bottoms of them too. And we move it up. Like that. Now we'll take all of these guys and move them in. And we'll take these guys and move them aft. And then these guys, move them over. There. There we go. Much more like I expect the destroyer to look. Now we can go in here to this section and bring it down. So let's talk about the side view of this, because it obviously did not expand up like it was supposed to. So let's go ahead and expand this up and this down, the engineering section to the aft section of the ship. Move these guys down just a little too. Well, no. I'm just going to make this roundish. There we go. I think I lost you, Donald, and it's kind of a bummer. You were on a question line there that was kind of cool. Do the ships have different gravity waves? And I feel like we were onto something there. And each ship will have its own unique signature when you're looking for them. You can figure it out. There. So this center section here has a centrifuge on it. So we want to make sure that that's viable there. I also feel like the after section is not as big on this as the fore section, so I'm going to select the after section here and scale it down a little. I'm going to apparently mess that up. Let's put it in naked mode. There. There. That's the way I want to see it. It's got a centrifuge in there in this center section right here, which we're not seeing in this section right through here, but that's okay. Okay, so for at least the next week or two, we are only doing our show until 11:45 so that I can go to lunch with my kid. So we're going to call it for the day. We'll keep working on the destroyer. Does that mean you don't have a lunch break, or you still are doing stuff? Well, then we can continue on for 15 more minutes then. So, my kid has said that he's got work to do, so I'm going to keep working then, because there's no reason not to. Got a couple of things we want to fix. For example, these guys right here need to be brought up. Like this, so that there's no divot in the hull here. However, it looks like these guys are going in now. I don't mean for that to happen. I think that's just a... go. And I'm just making this fit a little bit better. There. There. Just like that. So I want a wall here. That's really what I'm after. There. That after section there is now looking pretty solid. Obviously, these guys need to be brought down. We're just moving around under here until we get this shape the way we want it to be. There's a specific reason, though, that there's this double shape right here. This is a stripe on the ship. So when I make this model and export it, I want to be able to tag that stripe. There we go. Bring this around like that. And we will round this guy off. There we go. And we're just rounding this part back here so that it's not quite as dramatic. Although, it looks like I need to bring both of these guys. Oops. Let's not select something off of the side of the ship there. I'm going to bring that up and bring this guy down. And that has bent that. He doesn't need to be bent. There we go, just like that. All right. And now we've rounded off sort of the after section of this ship. It doesn't have a pilot house or anything back here, so we don't need to worry about that much. There. And that's the tail section of the ship. If we go over here and look at it this way, that's what we've got going for us. All right. I'm liking the look of this. It's looking pretty close to its drawings, even though it's upside down. Here, let's take a look one more time at our drawing. I feel like we're pretty close to this design. I still feel like the head part and the hammerhead's probably still too small. So instead of bringing the after section down, I'm going to bring that hammerhead up. Okay. There we go. That's where we're headed here. There. And that's looking a little bit more proportional. I mean, the destroyer is a bigger ship, but it's not that big. So we'll still need some room up here. There we go. Now let's take a look at this.
Also, if you have a moment, I would like to eat with you.
I thought we just said we weren't.
Well, that was because I had stuff that I needed to do. Lunch. But now, I have time. I'll give you your time to finish your show, but
Well, that's very magnanimous of you.
I don't know what to look at. I'm just kidding. I know what it means.
I know you know what that means. That was just clever. Okay, along the spine, we're looking good. Looks good through here. That back portion looks good as well. Sure does look nifty at this point, doesn't it? Right here. Super dramatic. We haven't even talked about its navigation fin, and we haven't even gotten there yet. We will. The navigation fin's one big piece, so we'll have to see how that looks. They look very fish-like. Okay, so we've got, I actually think I want to raise these guys a little bit more, like so. Give room in here for the equipment that lives in that section of the ship. All right. We have a destroyer, or at least one half of a destroyer. She'll probably be finished by the end of the day, so I'm not sure whether we're still broadcasting or not. I still see that we are 2.3% dropped so far. That's pretty brutal. But at least one thing I got to give props to for to the guys at OBS is that at least it didn't drop the frames. I mean, it didn't drop the show. It just dropped the frames, which that can be an issue as well, but at least in this instance it wasn't. So there is that. Okay, so looks like we are done with the left half of the hull here. There are a few things that I'm thinking of doing. The original drawing that we've got going on here is it shows, and it's hard to see here, but it shows like a hole structure through it, and I can't remember, because this was of course something I did, but I can't remember it now, as to whether these markings are markings or are they a hole through there. I went through a phase with design where I liked rigging and structures, so I feel like those are actually punched through. So if that's the case, I'm going to want to do that onto this piece using a Boolean, and do that on the ship here using a Boolean, because it's going to have to go through these pieces of the wing, and I'm not sure I really want to do that. I've been thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. I don't know if I want to do that. I mean, engineering-wise, cutting out that will save us a small amount of weight, but we don't need to worry about it. Weight isn't really a consideration, so I'm kind of not doing that. So that's kind of the way we're going here. There. Straighten that out. So, looking good. I feel like the ship is looking fine. We're going to put it's got a huge fin to the bottom. All of my ships have massive fins on the bottom, with the exception of the air ships. You'll see that on the Corvette. All of its sensor arrays are those two vertical stabilizers. That's where all the sensors are. The bigger the sensor, the taller the sensor is, the more it can read. And so these ships that aren't atmospherically capable and don't need to worry about it will have a huge fin along the bottom, which is like a lower dorsal fin, and that's for sensor arrays, and that's where all of its seeing is. And you'll put these ships in, and that's what they'll do. The first thing they'll do is start looking for things with that fin on the bottom, and so that's what its job is. So that's cool. We'll get there. It's got a gravity sensor in that, so they can see better. The Corvettes can see, but not as well as these guys. These guys can see a whole lot better. So we'll be doing that. It's kind of cool. And that's where we are. And I'm going to come back to here, and I'm going to say, well, thank you for joining me. I will see you tomorrow. We may or may not be still working on our little destroyer here. It's kind of coming along really nicely. I like it a lot, so we might still be working on it. Or I might be done, because I might just come up here in a few minutes and just keep tinking with it for the rest of the day. So, for those of you who joined me today, thank you very much. I will see you tomorrow if you want to join me at the same time, 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Until then, remember to keep your eyes on the stars, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.